Hello again, and welcome to another exciting episode of Social Studies. And today we are talking about European colonization of North America. This is when European countries began to set up colonies in North and South America, but we're mostly focused on North America because that is where the country that will someday be known as the United States is going to begin. So, and the European countries are the ones they're sometimes called the mother countries. Now, these will be, I know this picture is blurry, it is not your eyes, um, and didn't turn out quite as well as I hoped. But this is what we're talking about here, the flip notes. If you did not get the flip notes, almost all of you did, but there have been some people absent, I know. I will put them in Cami, although I'm going to warn you that they don't turn out quite as well in Cami because of the formatting of how these are. And if you have the flip notes, you know what I'm talking about. There's different sizes of pages, and they're really cool, but they don't translate to Cami quite as neatly as you might like. But you can still use Cami to fill in the notes if you don't have that. So don't use the excuse that you didn't have it. It's just not quite as fun as the flip notes. Okay, so first thing you need to know, and on this very first tab here, is going to be what colonies are. The main idea is that during the 1500s and 1600s, several European nations claimed land and created colonies in North America. And colonies, you're probably thinking, wait, I should know what colonies are because they were on our last note sheet and they were on our quiz. But just in case you forgot, colonies are people who are governed or ruled by a distant mother country. And I will pause right there. Actually, you can pause right there to write it down. A little thing you might notice about this video, I've caught on to the fact, well, I'm not stupid. I kind of suspected this, but it's been confirmed by many quizzes and by some comments from students that some students don't really watch the videos. They just zoom through until they see the notes that they can copy down. Now, remember, the purpose of school is to learn. The purpose of social studies is to learn social studies. It is not merely to fill in notes and do the least possible that is required of you. So on this video, at least, I'm going to avoid just putting up the notes for you to fill in so that you might actually have to pay attention the whole time because I may drop some knowledge that you will want to pick up. Okay, if you were in class, you may have seen this and stared at this. It doesn't, there we go. And you can see these are European countries. This is Europe here. These are colonies that they created over time. And you can see that Portugal and Spain are going to be two big ones in the early years of North and South America. They will eventually both lose all of their colonies. Portugal is going to focus primarily on colonies in Africa, whereas Spain is going to have a vast empire that will disappear by the 1800s. We don't need to watch the whole thing right now, but I'll let it go one time, and if you want to watch it again, you can always rewind the video. It only goes up to 2008. I'm not sure why. And you can see when they disappear, it's because these colonies were gaining their freedom from their mother countries and no longer being colonies. But here, watch Spain and Portugal appear yellow and green, and look at what they do over here and over here. Portugal, 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 Spain. All right, so you can see they expand there. Now, Portugal, country you may not have thought too much about. Portugal, as you probably know if you were in class, is located on what is called the Iberian Peninsula. It's at the edge of the what's sort of the separation, the boundary between the Mediterranean Sea and the Atlantic Ocean, and it almost touches Africa, but not quite. And Portugal, this little tiny country right here is where it's located, will, for a time period, become the most powerful country around. And how, you might think, well, you might guess because you know that environment affects people's cultures, you might realize, the culture of Portugal probably involves a lot of like seafaring, traveling by boat, fishing, trading, things like that. And that would be a good assumption. And Portugal is going to, this is not in your notes, but this is just a little extra knowledge, and you can see where it's located here. Um, they had a guy in the late 1300s or early 1400s named Prince Henry the Navigator. And Henry the Navigator thought he was kind of a visionary, not really, but he thought that the future of the world, the dominant countries would be those that control trade, and that meant controlling the seas. So he created what's called a navigation school at the time. He brought in people to create better maps, better ships, train people in navigation tools, and really made an effort to turn Portugal into an advanced seafaring, exploring the world kind of country. And that's going to succeed because, like everyone else back then, they want to reach Asia. They want a water route to Asia for the Spice Islands, for the silks, for the spices, for everything nice that is in Asia. They want a water route to Asia. Now, Portugal is going to set out, and their explorers will actually find a water route to Asia. We've talked about people not finding water route to Asia, but these guys actually do. And the way they do it is by sailing not to the west like Columbus, but to the south around Africa and reaching India, China, over here, the Spice Islands, Indonesia. So they reach Asia by sailing through the Indian Ocean around the southern tip of Africa. So, as you probably are thinking back right now to that little video that was embedded in here that shows the colonies, they are going to claim colonies along the coast of Africa so that they can control the trade routes. They will also claim one North American colony, what became Brazil. So, as we fade out, Portugal. If you are filling in the notes, now would be a time to pause, but it's not quite word for word, so you need to make sure you actually read along. Most of these notes are going to be set up with the gold, God, glory kind of theme. So for their gold, it was trade for them. They were looking for a water route to Asia, and they found it by going around Africa. Its advantage was and this is not on the screen, but it is in your notes. So this is the second blank on the notes. The advantage is its blank gave Portugal a head start for sea exploration. You can say its location slash culture. Its location slash culture gave Portugal a head start for sea exploration. Portuguese explorers found a water route to Asia by sailing around Africa. This motivated other nations to try to find a water route to Asia by sailing to the west, like Columbus did. They sailed to the west to try to sail around the world and come out the other side. So they sailed to the west. Portugal didn't, but the other ones did. Lands claimed in colonies. Portugal mostly claimed and set up trading posts in colonies along the coast of Africa and also Brazil in South America. And you can see right here, this is Portuguese. Okay, there you go. This is just another map showing them. And now they didn't sail all the way around. They set up colonies here, which they traded with African people. And this is going to have a big negative impact on the world because one of the main products that was being offered in these African markets and was human beings, and you could buy and sell humans for the purposes of slavery. And this is really going to cause slavery to expand from something that occurred in many parts of the world, but the African slave trade is really going to become a big international marketplace. It's beginning in the 1600s with the Portuguese controlling these trade routes around Africa. Okay, our next country is going to be Spain. And just to give you an idea here, this is going to be what's Portugal, this is Brazil. They claim, and it makes sense because if they're sailing around Africa, they're coming reasonably close to this eastern tip of South America, and this will become Brazil, which is the only country in South America that does not speak Spanish. They speak Portuguese. Spain, their neighbor, they are going to claim a vast empire, vast meaning huge, deep, wide. It's going to include North America, Central America, South America, and the many of the islands of the Caribbean there. So you can see there's no Portugal on this map here, but there is Spanish down here in Florida and what is the Southwest United States. To turn to our notes, this is on the second flip flap. Spain, explorers would be, oh, there we go. I knew I put a picture in this page right here. Columbus and the Conquistadors. How do you spell Conquistadors? So famous explorers, Columbus and the Conquistadors or Conquerors. They conquered Native American empires, they stole their riches, and they enslaved many people. They honestly caused quite a bit of damage. They're some of it intentional, some of it unintentional. For example, we've already talked about the Columbian Exchange, the good, the bad, the bringing the germs, the killing the people, but also introducing new foods, technologies, horses, things like that. That's if you missed out on that and missed those good times, go back to one of the earlier videos about the Columbian Exchange and you can relive that. All right, the reasons for exploration, like everyone else, gold, God, and glory. Number one, they hoped to find, just like others, I'm going to stick there for a second. They hoped to find a water route to Asia. Number one was a water route to Asia. And two, they hoped to find actual gold. So filling in the notes, you had number one was a water route to Asia. Two was actual gold. Spanish explorers did not, and you can underline that, not find Asia or cities of gold, even though Columbus thought he had. But they did often steal gold from the conquered empires, such as the Incas and the Aztecs. Don't worry if you can. There's going to be a slide that shows you these notes coming up. They forced Native American Indians to work in mines, and they stole their riches, etc. The God part, Spain was a very Catholic country. This was after the Protestant Reformation. They felt the need to show the superiority of the Catholic religion by spreading it around the world. So they sent over missionaries and they set up, the God part in your notes, they set up missions. Oh, sorry, that pops up too much. But missions, they would be like what you see in these pictures here. These are classic Spanish missions. They would set up, they'd send over Catholic priests. They'd set up like a little community with a church, a farm, places to live, maybe a school, some other things. And it would sort of be sort of a fort, sort of a church. These missions, many of these missions later grew into cities, which is why we have so many names in the American Southwest that are Spanish Catholic names, like Los Angeles, the Angels, San Diego, St. James, San Francisco, St. Francis, etc., etc. So that's the God part. They hoped to spread Christianity. They hoped to convert native Indians to Christianity. Don't worry about spelling. I'll get to that slide coming up soon. Now, interesting thing about them conquering these people and enslaving them and stealing their riches. It works. Lying and cheating and stealing works. Well, not really. Don't believe that. It worked for them for a short time. It did allow Spain to become, for a while, the richest, most powerful country on earth. And they stole vast amounts of riches and stuff. And some of these riches, many of these riches were transported. Where's my good map? Oh, I went too far. Well, you get the idea here. They conquered these lands in South America. They transported their riches back across the ocean to Spain, traveling many times through the Caribbean islands here, which there's hundreds of Caribbean islands, or Caribbean if you prefer. And this would be a home for pirates who would prey on these ships. You may have heard of the Pirates of the Caribbean. That was a real thing. And that's going to lead to a couple things historic. One is it's in order to protect these, Spain is going to begin the first permanent colony in North America at St. Augustine, Florida, which is supposed to be kind of like a safe harbor and provide protection for these ships that are transporting the golds and riches across the Caribbean. Another interesting side note that you'll only get in this video is um, in recent years, in recent years, treasure hunters have found some sunken treasure ships that sank in this corridor usually, um, and it's created some interesting legal cases. There's a famous one going on right now. Still, there was a ship called the San Jose, which sank somewhere in the Caribbean, somewhere off the coast of Colombia. Now, treasure hunters have uncovered it. This is a picture of some of it, and it's estimated that the value of the gold and the gold and other riches that sank to the bottom of the ocean in today's dollars would be over $1 billion. And the treasure hunters, this is a big business, and they want to harvest the treasure basically. But that raises all kinds of legal questions about who really owns it. Um, Spain, the Spanish government claims that it was a Spanish ship that still belongs to Spain. Um, even though it was 300 years ago. The United States, in a very similar case, ruled that it belonged to Colombia because it's off of their coast of their waters. The American company that wants to harvest it claims it belongs, finders keepers, losers weepers. And then there's also a claim of people, descendants of the Incas and Aztecs, who's now, why were these ships loaded with gold in the first place? Because they were in the process of stealing it from these native tribes. So they claim that they have ownership to it. And in the most recent similar case, the courts ended up ruling in favor of the Spanish government, and they were able to get it because it was their ship that sank. And even though it's been argued that, well, the Spanish government today is a vastly different Spanish government than existed back then when it was a king and queen, apparently that doesn't matter. So it's a really interesting legal question to think about. Who owns it? There's not a clear-cut answer right now. It's still tied up in the courts. That's something you can follow and see who owns it. Okay. Here is St. Augustine, Florida. This is the fort they built. It's kind of cool looking fort. This is going to be the first permanent European settlement. Spain at one time will claim all of this in red and pink will be claimed by Spain. Claimed by Spain, a vast territory. But we'll see throughout this 7th grade social studies, Spain claims a lot of land, but they don't necessarily do a lot of it with it or hang on to a lot of it. All right, so Spain, to fill in your notes, Columbus and the Conquistadors claimed a vast empire in North and South America. They were looking for a water route to Asia and gold. In class, I mentioned the 7 cities of gold. That was a legend that Native Americans told them, that there were these 7 cities where everything was made out of gold, and they basically trekked all around looking for them, and that's how they ended up claiming a lot of their land. They also sent missionaries and set up missions to spread the Catholic religion or Christianity. Their colony, I should have mentioned this earlier probably, but their colony is going to be called New Spain. We will see that a lot of these European countries aren't real creative in their naming, but they want to create a new version of themselves in the new world. So Spain's colony will be New Spain. St. Augustine there, let me watch the red dot disappear. Look at that. The first permanent European settlement in what is now the US. They conquered the Incas and Aztec. They took lots of gold, claimed vast areas of land, but didn't really bring a lot of settlers. And you can see their territory claimed will be Florida, Ponce de Leon, looking for the Fountain of Youth, you might remember from previously. And then what is now the, southwest. Oh, yes, the southwest United States in this area. This is all going to be Spanish influence in Spanish colonies. Okay, and next we will get to France, but not today. That's all for now. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. I should give you a little extra knowledge for listening, but hopefully if you made it this far, you learned something and you'll do well. Don't forget to answer your Google questions that go with this. All right. Have a good evening.